So I think a good way to kick off the sermon is to quote the infamous phrase from Rabbi Hillel, who asked a series of questions. If I am not for myself, then who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, then what am I? And if not now, when? It's the importance of asking the question. So let's talk about manifesting miracles here. If there's one thing that the Bible teaches us, is it gives us all permission to reach beyond our present level of understanding of how we understand our own life, God's plan for us, the nature of God. And if you've read the Bible, you know that there are miracles both in the Old Testament, the New Testament. We should be at least mildly curious about our own abilities in our own life, even if we don't believe 1,000% in their actual factual reality. A miracle, as defined in the dictionaries, the Greek word thumaison, the Latin miraculum, as that which causes wonder and astonishment, being extraordinary in itself and amazing, or inexplicable by normal standards. And we'll cover some of those things in just a moment, but underscoring Psalm 65, you silence the roaring seas, the roaring of their waves, the tumult of the peoples. Those who live at the earth's farthest bounds are awed by your signs. You make the gateways of the morning and the evening shout for joy. You visit the earth and water it. You greatly enrich it. The river of God is full of water. You provide the people with grain, for so you have prepared it. You water its furrows abundantly, settling its ridges, softening it with showers, and blessing its growth. You crown the year with your bounty. Your wagon tracks overflow with richness. The pastures of the wilderness overflow. The hills gird themselves with joy. The meadows clothe themselves with flocks. The valleys deck themselves with grain. They shout and sing together for joy. And given the present circumstances of our state here in California, I want to highlight one verse there and continue to ask for God's blessings upon it. You visit the earth and water it. You greatly enrich it. The river of God is full of water. All right, you hear that, Lord? The river of God is full of water. So I'm going to call upon that river of God here. So now we can tack and turn a little bit into addressing greater than these, the greatest achievements. I was curious about this past week, about what other people consider humanity's greatest achievements to date. What have we done? What have we done that's fantastic? You have any ideas? Anyone want to throw something out there? Technology's up there. Anyone else? Yes, that's in there too. All right, I'll just list it. I'll list the first one, because I'm going straight to number one. And this was crowdsourced, so it was by all these people online, and they gave lots of commentary and backing up their answers. The first one was traveling to the moon. And part of the reason for that was said, if you went back in time 200 years ago and you said, we're going there, people would not believe you. I think that's pretty true. Traveling to the moon is pretty big. The creation of electronic devices was ranked number 2. The mastery of flight, number 3. Domestication of fire was number 4. 5 was writing, the creation of writing, the ability to write things down. 6 was photography. 7, theories of relativity and quantum mechanics. 8 was the theory of evolution. 9, the creation of music. And number 10, developed vaccines. We got there. So, that's an impressive list of things. I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time trying to re-rank those or get crowdsourced here on which one's going to go up or down, but You notice that any spiritual advancement was not listed in any of those rankings. Loving people more, having better relations with our neighbors, all of those were not ranked on this list. How come? I think with the exception of music and all that we've done, there wasn't one on that really shifts us emotionally, at least in our own day-to-day lives. I mean, I'm impressed with the walking on the moon, and I know from the stories told by anyone who's gone out to outer space, they come back spiritually transformed. They've seen this little blue, delicate marble dancing in space, and they realize how wonderfully fragile our existence hangs from the experience of seeing that from a totally different vantage point. So that's another one I think is valuable in terms of accomplishments. But when we're going to take this to the spiritual level, here's another question. Are we human beings or human doings? A lot of what we ranked there was the things that we've done and our accomplishments from the tasks of our hands. Our human hands have done things. They have been doing things. And this topic really forges something, hopefully, in our own psyche about what is it that's really spiritually advanced from the past several thousand years that we've done and accomplished. Are we generally more loving to each other in our society? Are we being friendlier and kinder to one another? And not just to humans, but to how we treat animals and our relationship to the natural world, to the biosphere. Are we human beings attempting to achieve a spiritual experience? Or are we spiritual beings having a human experience? Are we both? Well, we're not going to solve all these right now, but it's at least good to ask the questions. The questions are the more important thing. So what did Jesus mean when he said, "You will do greater things than these"? And I'll refresh our memories here. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and, in fact, will do greater works than these. Because I am going to the Father, I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it. That's a fair question. How many believe that you can do greater works than Jesus? I didn't see any hands go up. That's pretty good, I guess. We're all honest with that. It's hard to imagine us doing day-to-day miracles. But that's not really the question I believe that should be asked. How might we live our life differently? What if things that may be the impediments to living a life that's more in alignment with what we know is good were easy? Not only easy, but it would be more joyful. Those questions are really the wrestling of today. Are we being more kind, more loving, more compassionate? Has anything in our life brought us to that spiritual development in our own existence? And is that really the greater thing that Jesus was talking about? I'm going to give us a few more things to consider. How much joy do you feel in your own life consistently, day in and day out? If you're honest, it's between you and God. What is that level, and how would you rate it if it was a ranking scale? I'm going to give you some, I'm going to introduce two acronyms. One you may be familiar with, the other one I'm pretty sure you're not familiar with. Who's familiar with the acronym FOMO, F-O-M-O? A lot of people. Stands for the fear of missing out. I'm going to give you some insight and a replacement for that one. I think that's horrible. Horrible. You start with fear, and it gets worse. You're anxious. You're like, I'm going to miss out. I'm fearful. I'm going to give you a new acronym. You can embrace it. It's called JOMO. J-O-M-O. It's the joy of missing out. The joy. You're just completely happy. Like, man, all those things that come along with what you think a story might be. And I remember this like plagued me as a kid. I had serious FOMO. And then when I had the experience, I'm like, why did everyone want to do this? So I'm embracing JOMO, the joy of missing out, because wherever you go, there you are. You can't try and escape that one. You're going to be there. So if you're experiencing some connectivity to God, creation, whatever you want to label that, and you can continue to hold on to that, guess what? Your FOMO will transform into JOMO. And you can test this out in your own life. It's, I say this here fairly frequently, it's fairly easy here in this sacred space on a sacred day where you've carved out the time to feel God's presence. And we can get energized, hopefully charge our batteries to get us through another week, and then we come back and recharge them again. But boy, as soon as you pull out of this driveway here and you're out there in your car trying to navigate the world, whoosh, that battery level is going to take a hit on the joy level. It is a challenge being out there in the present world, just navigating it physically. It is and remains countercultural to have the experience of the joy of missing out. So, actually, I got one here. I'm going to read a little bit more from Swedenborg. He writes this piece, and he talks about it's popular in our tradition, nunc licet. It's now permitted, and this is a partial part of that where he explains his spiritual journey, where he's given this information. He says, describing an angel from the third heaven, where all at a distance looked like infants. He came to me, handed me the paper, but as the writing was rounded letters, such as they have in heaven, I returned the paper and asked him to explain to me the meaning of the words that were written, in terms adapted to the ideas of my thought. He replied, "This is what is here written. Enter hereafter into the mysteries of the word, which has been heretofore shut up. For the particular truths therein are so many mirrors to the Lord." Particular truths therein are so many mirrors to the Lord. Now, I love that phrase, and I want you to just consider what your mirror to the Lord is. How do you reflect that? How does that become part of something that, if you're not feeling it, how do you reflect that light to others? How does that make you an instrument, a vehicle? It's a bit of the language of a fractal, where we can and do reflect light. It's an invitation to become aware of the light that's already available to us, to embrace it, to feel it. Who are we? As another question. So, and that's going back to Hillel. I'm going to give you, I'm going to end with a excerpt here from Eckhart Tolle, from A New Earth. And I love it because it speaks to your present experience of life. And whatever you may be trying to manifest in your life, if you're experiencing it now or not, this gives you some insight to apply right now. He says, "Who you think you are is intimately connected with how you see yourself treated by others. Many people complain that others do not treat them well enough. When people are kind, they suspect hidden motives. Who they think they are is a needy person whose needs are not being met. This basic misperception creates dysfunction in all their relationships. They believe they have nothing to give and that the world and other people are withholding from them what they need. If the thought of lack, whether it is money, recognition, love, has become part of who you think you are, you will always experience lack. Acknowledging the good that is already in your life is the foundation for all abundance. The fact is, whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you are withholding from the world. You are withholding it because deep down you think you are small and that you have nothing to give. Try this. Whatever you think people are withholding from you, give it to them. You don't have it? Just act as if you have it, and it will come. Soon after you start giving, you will start receiving. You cannot receive what you don't give. Outflow determines inflow. Whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you already have. But unless you allow it to flow out, you won't even know you have it. This includes abundance. The source of abundance is not outside you. It is part of who you are. Abundance comes only to those who already have it. It is a universal law. Both abundance and scarcity are inner states that manifest as your reality. So may the Lord grant us all that consistent feeling of spiritual abundance. Amen.